Hey, what's up, A-Push kids? We're back for our next lecture here in AP US History. Our topic today is 4.9, the development of American culture. Our learning objective today is 4I. Explain how and why a new national culture developed from 1800 to 1848. We have two key ideas that we're just going to introduce to you right off the bat. Our first key idea says a new national culture emerged that combined American elements, European influences, and regional cultural sensibilities. And our second major idea says that liberal social ideas from abroad and romantic beliefs in human perfectibility influenced literature, art, philosophy, and architecture. So we'll be kind of talking about kind of both of these in combination with one another. The first element that we're going to talk about is literature. And so with literature, we want to look at how it's a new national culture, but how it also is influenced by ideas of human perfectibility and romantic beliefs. And that literature is one of the biggest literary movements during this time is what is called Transcendentalism. And not only was it a literary movement, but it was also a philosophical movement. Now, the biggest person was Ralph Waldo Emerson, who you saw in that last picture right there, and he argued for a new mystical and intuitive way of thinking. And he also argued for this idea of kind of human perfectibility, that especially humans that were living in urban society were somehow had been corrupted, and by going back into nature, they could be able to regain some sense of perfectibility. His book, Life in the Woods, is about that idea of returning to nature, returning to this idea of perfectibility and these kind of romantic beliefs about being in harmony with nature. There are also other American authors, and they're also going to kind of create this new national culture. And so we see this very kind of distinctive American kind of elements. And two books we're just going to kind of point out to you, and there's several more from the time period, but we'll just mention two. The first one is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And he's going to question the intolerance and conformity in American life. And another one, The Last of the Mohicans, is uses American settings by James Fenimore Cooper. But all of these different literary styles are not only combining American elements and European influences and developing this unique national literary culture, but they also are influenced by romantic beliefs and these ideas of human perfectibility as well. Also sharing these ideas of European influences, human perfectibility, romanticism, it also is demonstrated through art as well. And the biggest art at the time was the Hudson River School. Now, the Hudson River School is a series of paintings, a style of painting really, from 1820 to 1870. Now, the background of the Hudson River School says that the artists are going to try and capture the undiluted power of nature, paint the most spectacular and undeveloped areas, that nature is the best source of wisdom and fulfillment. That's kind of that romantic belief that we see there. And it also creates the visual embodiment of Transcendentalism. And remember, Transcendentalism is all about this idea of human perfectibility and romantic beliefs. Now, there are three major characteristics of the Hudson River School: grand scenic vistas, the insignificance of humans, and experiments with light on both water and in the sky. And we're going to see a few major issues and themes. For instance, transcendentalist thinking, westward expansion, American nationalism, Native Americans, political extremism, and the price paid for progress. So we're going to look at a few of the major Hudson River School paintings from this particular time. The first one is in Nature's Wonderland by Thomas Doughty, painted in 1835. Now, Doughty was one of the earliest American artists to use small figures dwarfed by the landscape. And this kind of denotes man's place as part and parcel of nature. And essentially, it's a surrender of the self in the face of God's handiwork. Kind of like an act of devotion. The figure's solitary state and of the absorption of the environment with his back turned to us also reinforce the contemplative silence that surrounds him. Now, Doughty's going to lay the groundwork for public acceptance of the American landscape paintings as both valuable and significant. Thomas Cole really becomes known as the father of the Hudson River School. Now, nobody had really painted America, quote unquote, before these artists. Now, the Hudson Valley through the Catskills and the Adirondacks is where they're going to be painted at. And really, Cole kind of paints America as this idea of Eden. One of his most famous paintings is the Oxbow, painted in 1836. The dramatic clouds over the wilderness to the left speak of the uncontrolled power of nature, and you see this tension between the wilderness and the garden to the right, kind of this savagery and civilization kind of against each other. There's kind of this idea that, would the wilderness disappear completely for the sake of civilization, or would the two be able to exist in perpetual tension with one another? Our next Thomas Cole painting is The Course of Empire, the Savage State. Now, this is a series of paintings from Thomas Cole that are all allegorical paintings on the rise and fall of civilizations. It's a warning to America about the dangers of democracy, which he thought could so easily degenerate into mob rule in the hands of a demagogue, who, in defying the will of the people without curbing his fickle passion, would become a dictator, kind of an American Caesar. In many ways, this is Cole's reaction to Andrew Jackson at the time. Now, this was meant to be the visual analogy to Edward Gibbon's decline and fall of the Roman Empire. Same setting, a natural harbor topped by round rocks. So we see this kind of in the next few scenes right here. So in this one, we see the primordial scene, the culture without monuments or records. In this one, what we're seeing here, we see the kind of pastoral state, architecture, technology, the arts have begun, but Eden can't really last forever. In our next one, consummation, what we see here is population have really led to mob rule. There's dictatorship. Here comes Caesar across the bridge in triumph, which then leads to destruction. The bellicose little beasts have grown up. The imperial city has fallen, sacked, and pillaged by hordes of unspecified vandals, finally leading us to desolation. And the cycle of history returns to its beginning, wilderness with ruins in a single column representing the vanity of man. Our next painting, Durand from 1849, Kindred Spirits, he had the desire to create a harmony between man and nature. To contemplate or paint nature brought him closer to the divine and could inspire one to lead a moral life. Audubon and his Watercolors, it was his Birds of America series that we see painted right here. Now, he was a scientist and in no formal training in natural history, but he was an excellent field naturalist. In order to illustrate his birds, he had to kill them in great numbers, and with no cameras, he had to be able to study them up close. Now, eventually, this would lead to the Audubon Society, which, ironically enough, works today to save bird species. Finally, let's talk about architecture during this particular time period. Now, going back to one of our major themes that we talked about at the beginning, is that we had a major influence of European styles. And in architecture, we really see these different European styles starting to come together. So, for instance, we see this neoclassical architecture at the U.S. Customs House in 1836. Notice the Roman columns, the Greek facade at top. So it's a combination of different European elements. We see the same front when we look at Jefferson's Rotunda at the University of Virginia, which was built between 1819 and 1826. Other European influences can also be seen in the Capitol Rotunda as well. Something that you would have seen not only in Greek, but also especially in Italian architecture as well. So in conclusion today, Americans at this particular time are starting to develop their own national style, both in literature, art, and architecture. However, they're still heavily influenced by European elements during this particular time, and they're also incorporating ideas of both Romanticism as well as the ideas of human perfectibility. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Until next time, go Pack.